Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of, what are we calling this today?
Thursday Q&A.
Thursday Q&A. Orthodox questions only, though, right?
No.
No, they can ask whatever they want. Well, Presidenta, welcome to tonight's, I'm getting into Lent here, and I said, welcome to tonight's service. Okay, this is not a service, okay,
Been
disclaimer.
a few weeks for me.
And yeah, that's right. Well, we had...
I was in Florida last week. Then, for 2 weeks. But
2
you had
weeks.
John 2 weeks ago.
Yep. And then we had Sam a little while ago. So they'll be back in April. So they're going to give me some dates, and they'll be back. Both of our moms are doing well, right? In fact, you just talked to your mom today. So
I did.
and
She's doing great.
Doing great. Okay. And my mom's finally getting her windows. So she's going to be getting her windows. That's good.
Yeah.
All
My
right.
mom moved in with my brother, so
Oh, very. So everything is good on the home front. We had, I thought, well, actually, you thought that it would be good that we have two tragedies that we wanted to pray for. One, obviously, was the Francis Scott Key Bridge tragedy. I thought the last number that I saw was 7 or something. So.
I heard it was 6, but they could have increased. It was 6. They'd found 2 bodies. And they were looking for 4 more, but who knows? Maybe the count went up. I don't know.
And then you were just telling me about another bus accident that happened that I had not heard about.
In South Africa. It was a bus with 45 people on it, on their way to celebrate the Easter service, and the driver, they think, lost control of the bus, and they were carrying in the bus. They were carrying, I think fuel, maybe for cooking or something. I know it was fuel. I can't remember what it was for. And he lost control, and he went over the cliff, over the side of the road, and they crashed, and the bus exploded. An 8-year-old girl survived so far. Hopefully, you have to pray that stays. They took her to the hospital, but everybody else perished.
Oof.
Yeah.
So we wanted to open that tonight with just some words of prayer for them. So, glory to the Father, to the Son, to the Holy Spirit, now and forever, and to the ages of ages. Amen. O Lord and God of powers, we ask that you be with us in this time of tragedy, for we recognize that we have no help but you. And in our time of need, you who are just and merciful, who inclines to the supplication of his people, we ask that you look down upon those who survived these 2 great tragedies, and to deliver them from their suffering that besets them. And also, Lord, we ask for your infinite mercy upon your newly departed servants from both of these tragedies. And we grant that with your divine helping grace, that you endow these your servants with patience, strength to endure their tribulations with complete submission to your will. For you know our misery and our suffering, and you are our only hope and refuge, which we flee to for relief and comfort. And we trust in your infinite love and compassion. And we rejoice in your most merciful and exalted and majestic name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, now and forever, to the ages of ages. Amen.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else you wanted to
Really quick,
before
the book's getting closer. Okay.
I know it's almost there.
So now we've got, if you can see, if you got that other book over there. So
You changed the title a little bit.
change the title a little bit, and we've got a new look. This is actually an icon from our church.
Demos took the picture.
Demos, so I have to give Demos picture credits. The book is
I demand 35% royalty. Thank you.
and 35% of 14 cents is all yours.
You'll do at least a quarter. Come on.
I'll do at least a quarter.
Whatever adds up, you know.
So we're really excited. The book's now finished. So we're just waiting on a couple of more things, and then we're hoping that this is going to be available. And coming up in 2 weeks, Dr. Jeannie Constantino, is going to be here in Rochester, and she's going to be talking about her new book, The Crucifixion of the King of Glory. Really, really great read, and it really puts you right into Holy Week. And so with this book, Holy Week just doesn't become just a reading and an intellectual exercise, but she really brings you there and gives you a lot of behind the scenes information. We're doing a Bible study right now, or we've transformed our Bible study into reading along with her book so that we can be somewhat prepared. So that's going to be on the 13th of April on a Saturday. So again, if you're local and you're in the area and you'd like to come and attend this, you're more than welcome. So those are my two announcements. Anything else we got?
No, it's good that we didn't schedule it on the eclipse.
Yes, that's probably a good thing. Rochester will be famous for 3.5 minutes for the eclipse.
Is that how long it is?
That's what I heard. It's 3.5 minutes or something.
Yeah, it's a few minutes.
It's a few minutes.
We'll go with that.
We'll go with
We
it.
have to get our glasses still. But apparently there are some fake eclipse glasses out there that aren't really made for the eclipse, and you could hurt your eyes. We got to make sure we get authentic
Oh, no,
the eclipse.
The Science Museum has them.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, the local Science Museum.
Oh.
Yeah.
so no, I remember the Saturday Night Live skit with the Jeff Goldblum and it was it Will Ferrell?
Yeah, Harry Carey.
And he plays Harry Carey, and he looks over at him and he goes, so, Dr. whatever it was, Dr. Joe, have you ever just stared into the sun? And Jeff Goldblum is like, no, I think that's bad for you. Goes, yeah, really hurt. So that's all I can think of.
Well, it's very funny. Everybody should at least see it once.
Yeah, that's a great skit.
All right. Are we ready to move along?
Yeah,
All
let's
right.
do it.
Okay. All right. First up is cooking with bee-bug. Hi, bee-bug. What is your opinion on the current statement of the red heifer sacrifice taking place in Israel to supposedly bring about the end of times and build the third temple of Jerusalem? Let's see. It says these events only, and then the second sentence, I don't know if it matches up, but it says, they said that the calves and the altar have been built in the manner as stated in Numbers chapter 19 on the Mount of Olives and will be used to then mix the ashes with water to ritually purify the priests and any equipment used in the building of the third temple. The government has given them a warning against it due to further conflict, but as of now, the date is set for the Passover, April 22nd.
This Passover?
Sounds like it.
Well, I mean, there is if you look at chapter 19, I mean, I had to cheat a little bit because we did get to see the question, full disclosure. And if you look at Numbers chapter 19, right in the beginning of the chapter, it says, and now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron saying, this is the injunction of the law. Speak to the children of Israel and let them bring you a red heifer without blemish in which there is no defect and upon which a yoke has never been placed, and give it to Eleazar the priest and clean it, and they shall slaughter it before him. So, I mean, there is a basis for this idea of the red heifer. But for the Orthodox, I mean, we just really have to stay with Jesus's words. And I'm just going to quote Matthew here. But about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. So I think we have to be very careful because, and I think you've mentioned it before, we can't orchestrate God's timing. God's timing is his timing, and Jesus was very, very clear on that. So although events can come up, did you say that they were trying to genetically produce one or something?
No, just they were breeding the heifers, trying to get a perfectly red one. And I just think that, it's not as if God can say, well, you forced me.
Yeah, you forced my hand. I got to do this now. So then we just have to stay with the words of our Lord.
All right. Okay. Next is from the Amateur Sommelier. There's a part before the serving of Holy Communion for the catechumens to be dismissed before receiving. Does that mean visitors are supposed to be dismissed as well? I might be anxious and overthinking, but as I plan to go to pre-sanctified liturgy next week for the first time in person, I just want to be as prepared as I am non-Orthodox. Thank you for also streaming the pre-sanctified liturgy and salutation service during Great Lent.
Well, amateur sommelier?
Mm-hmm.
So, Amateur Sommelier, thank you very much for tuning in. The pre-sanctified liturgies, as you probably heard me say yesterday, they are very, very beautiful. They're very different from the standard St. John Chrysostom liturgy, but they just, with the lights dim, they just have a very, very beautiful character. Demos got all excited because he had the lighting all set, and then I went, you know what? We got to have less lighting. And all of a sudden I just kind of flicked off all the lights, and he said, you should warn me. And I'm like, yeah, but I just get inspired at the moment.
I mean, you spent all that time setting it up.
I know. Well, but that's his job, is to react to my changed nature.
You'll get yours.
Yes. So, but they are very beautiful service. Thank you for tuning in on tuning into that. But back to your question, which was,
as a visitor. Do catechumens and visitors have to leave during those prayers since they're not they're not baptized Orthodox?
So if you read the accounts like Nicholas Kabasilas on his explanation on the divine liturgy, and you read some of the history by Hugh Wybrew in his book on the origins of the divine liturgy. In the beginning times, because the second part was, if we could say, the mystery part, because that was the liturgy of the Eucharist, which was reserved for those who were Orthodox or who were Christians, there actually was a separation of the people, and the deacon's job was then to remove the catechumens, and they would then go to Bible study. So they were supposed to then study it. They didn't leave. So they went to Bible study, and then the rest of the faithful would then participate in the liturgy of the Eucharist. Today, that's gone fairly passé. So I personally don't know of any priests that are actually telling, the parish council to kick people out when we say the door's the door. So more now, it's just a remembrance of that time.
What about in the other Orthodox churches, like the Russian Orthodox? I mean, they're much stricter. Do they adhere to that, or has everybody just?
That's a good question. And yeah, but unfortunately, because I did not see that when I attended the Romanian churches, so I didn't see it in the Romanian churches. We didn't see it at all in Father Matthew's church in Flint, and that was the OCA church. But again, they support the Russian tradition, and I didn't see them leaving. So, but I don't know about the Rokar church itself. But I've never been to any other Antiochian, Romanian, or OCA churches that actually kick the catechumens out.
Okay.
And just to note, we will also be live streaming the final pre-sanctified that's happening on our location on the 10th of April, and then the following week we will also be live streaming the Akathist.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right. From Annette Anastasi. I had to look at that. I was received by chrismation as I had been baptized as a baby in the Anglican Church.
Mm-hmm.
What do I say to those who say that I should be rebaptized because the Orthodox Church does not accept heretical baptisms?
Well, if your baptism was done in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, that i.e. it was a Trinitarian baptism, then the answer is that it was not heretical. Okay, that is the only criteria that is given to me by the Archdiocese and by my bishop that says that in order to accept a baptism as valid, it must be done in a Trinitarian fashion. So, you already said that you were Anglican. The Anglican baptism is done in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. The answer to that question is what does it say in the Creed? That we acknowledge one baptism for the remission of sins. And we acknowledge, if you say even further, one valid baptism, and your baptism is valid. So just refer them to the Creed and ask them, what makes mine heretical? And then why should I not practice what the Creed of Faith tells me to do?
All right. From Alex Blocks, I have a question. What happens if the priest is sick who does the divine liturgy?
Sick in the head or just sick?
No, I think he means, and what if you're sick and you can't come? What do? You're the only priest. You don't have a deacon. So what? Well, I mean, I know the answer, but
Well, I'm not going up there.
Well, I don't know. What's your answer?
well, here, I mean, you'd have to be quite sick for you
Yes.
not to come in. You would come in anyway, but if you were very sick, I believe, you can correct me, you would say go to Holy Spirit or go to any of the other Orthodox churches that are in the area, because we have several.
We have several. That's really the answer to the question. We in the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese, we just don't have that many. We don't have hardly any supply priests. So every priest is occupied in their own parish, and so it's an unfortunate situation. But President is absolutely right. There are a number of Orthodox churches, typically in all of the areas. I mean, unless you're in the middle of Montana or something, okay. And so there's always another church that you can attend for that one Sunday.
Well, this happened this happened recently. You were very sick, and it was
I had COVID.
actually, no, you didn't have COVID. Just recently, you had COVID.
No, I mean,
No, just recently.
Oh,
Like, you had COVID and didn't
Oh.
tell me?
Oh.
No, like a few weeks ago. Remember, you were sick. It was a Saturday of Souls, and you did Friday night, the Friday before, whatever. You did a service, and I thought, how is he going to make it through all those things? Because I timed it. And
Oh, okay.
Demos saw, because he was there, 32 minutes of just the names, in addition to the service. And we thought, oh, there's no way he's going to get through it. But you did.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I wasn't able to make it through the gospel reading, and I thought, oh boy, I don't know how I'm going to get through those names. But this is why we believe. Not this is why, but here's another example of God exists, because there's no way I should have been able to read all those names the way that I was feeling.
Yes. So there we go. Had that actually happen.
We have some follow-ups to the previous questions. I'm going to just jump to real quick. Diane says, we were at an Anglican wedding in the family's 12th church. They literally barred the doors.
At an Anglican church.
Yes, at an Anglican church.
Wow. Okay. So
And then Carol Weaver says, no, in Rocor, they have not kicked out catechumens. I used to be one.
oh, okay.
In Rocor, but now we are not going. I miss it, but I understand what my husband too. And then Nancy Torvin says, my baptism was Trinitarian, but not triple immersive. So we are scheduled to be baptized again on Holy Saturday.
Okay. All right. Now, I don't think that, there's nothing wrong with, let's say, if we had several catechumens and after the liturgy of the word, meaning after they heard the gospel, as we were preparing for the great entrance, that those catechumens went to another area like a classroom and they were instructed. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. That could happen, but we'd have to have somebody who is capable of instructing them. And to be fair, not to be fair, to be realistic, most Orthodox churches don't have somebody who is qualified to teach adults. We're very qualified to teach kids, but teaching adults, as you know from this program, they have very difficult questions. All right. So most of the time, education, catechism is left to the priest or the deacon. And since we don't have any deacons, I just wouldn't have the time to do that. So that's another reason why we don't necessarily do that. But we could, if we had somebody to train, we could do that.
Well,
Absolutely.
They could adjourn to a computer and study with your catechumen, your catechism. What's it called? Catechism handbook.
Catechism handbook. That's true.
And somebody's suggesting that I should become Deacon Demos. I wouldn't be able to live stream then. And
Yeah.
No, we'd find. Don't worry. With a
that's-
name like Demos, I think that there's something in his future. We'll have to, and we'll be looking for somebody to live stream. I mean, again, Nobody there's no, even the world got on even without John Kennedy. So,
Well, I think we'd have to check with Dionysia because she'd have to agree to
oh,
it.
she would have to agree. That's right.
Yeah, but I'm not planning to be assassinated.
All right. Next is Logan Blackwood. A great priest is a community leader shepherding people not just to God, but through life. Had I been given the calling, it would be an honor to do what Father Angelo does. God bless you, brother and sisters in New York.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that compliment. But that also, and also we have to stress that one of the characteristics of a good priest is humility and a sense of humor, not taking yourself too seriously. So leadership, but as we said in the military, a great leader has to be able to follow as well as to lead.
All right. Next is from Ioane of Brazil. Can a priest for any reason refuse to hear the confession of an Orthodox faithful?
Wow. I'm just thinking of a valid reason for refusing to hear. The only scenario that I can think of is that if the person has a father confessor already, then it is inappropriate for another priest to take on that role, because then they're priest shopping, looking for their answer. So if I do hear, and I've been in that situation before, where somebody will come to me and they'll say, "Father, I want to schedule a confession." I go to X church and I say, "Well, before you come to me, you need to clear that through your priest, because that's very inappropriate for one priest to take over." So that's the only time that I can think of where I would turn away somebody from a confession.
Right, because sometimes it's because they know if they confess to their father confessor, they're going to be really tough. They might get handed a stiff penalty where they figure you might be easier. And
Yep. And we've got it. We've had a situation where that happened. One person, not here, this is somewhere else. One person actually, for that reason, they went to somebody else, and that's what happened. Is they gave him a more severe penance, and then they came back to the original priest, and he said, "You've already made your decision." I said, "I can't take that penance away. You've got to go." And he's like, "But no."
Wasn't that a monastery? Yeah, I think you mentioned that
Yes,
story
yeah.
before. Yeah.
wow. All right. Let's see. Next is Fyodor Dostoevsky. Was there suffering before the Garden of Eden? If no, can evolution be reconciled with the Genesis story?
So no. At that point, no, there was no suffering, because there was only direct communication with God, and everything was created for good. So it wasn't until he said, "And now you," when they were exiled from the Garden of Eden, that God said, "And now the earth will produce the sweat of your brow, and woman, you shall be in travail." So that the beginnings of suffering. So no, but I'm trying to connect the second part of what he's saying. So maybe you can help me
Well,
with that.
with evolution, survival of the fittest. So certain hardships in nature cause evolution for animals to evolve. Like, for instance, a giraffe developed its longer neck so it can reach the higher branches, that kind of idea. So without suffering, there is no evolution. But I would, if I may be so bold, Genesis, the story of Adam and Eve, they don't list every single animal. So would that be a way to think about it, that the animals that were in Eden were a pre-evolved version of those animals?
Well, maybe the beginning of that species. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
could-
kind of like that.
Yeah, the beginning of that species, and then because of suffering that enters into the world. Okay, then they need to evolve to their changing environment.
I mean, that would also explain some differences in the races, et cetera, et cetera. Wherever people go, they change and acclimate to that climate.
Right. People of Africa are different from the people of Sweden because of those difference in climates, right? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. From the wife of Ioanni of Brazil.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is that how she lists herself?
No, I just
Okay.
say that because if I say Ioanni, you're not gonna know it's from Brazil. I always want to call out that he's from Brazil.
Oh, okay.
because,
All right. And I think that also we want to extend our continuing prayers as he works through seminary.
Yeah.
So yeah, please continue our prayers
he-
for our
he also-
Brazilian brother.
Yes, he also does send blessings from Brazil and for our prayers during the storm last time.
Yes. Yeah.
So the question is, what are the reasons for each of the dietary restrictions in the Great Lent? Eggs, fish, dairy, oil, etc.
Actually, this is a really great question, and we've actually lost the essence of what those original reasons were. So if you look at those items, if you look at maybe not dairy, okay, but if we look at meat and we look at olive oil and we look at wine, okay, those were expensive commodities, all right? And so the idea from St. Basil was that if we fast from those things that are expensive and we move to foods that are cheaper, the money that we save, so instead of slaughtering a lamb and we eat now maybe vegetables and other things that we grow, there's going to be a difference in money. And that's the money that then goes for charity. And that's how the pyramid is completed. Because remember, it's prayer, fasting, and alms, okay, or charity. And so where does that money come from? That money comes from the savings that we would have spent on these very expensive items, and now that reminds us to give them to the poor.
Was any of it because at the time of fasting, some of those foods might have been in short supply?
Well, certainly the three that I mentioned, olive oil, wine, and meats, those certainly were not rationed out, but they were very difficult to manufacture, and so they could be in short supply.
Oh, I meant more from weather, like if the spring hadn't come yet, because the crops weren't growing and maybe they were in short supply anyway.
Yeah, I mean it could be because of the grapes, right? The grapes wouldn't have ripened. The lands wouldn't have grown or whatever that is. I guess the one that I'm missing is the rules for the dairy. Why is it that dairy is out? I don't think that dairy would have necessarily been an expensive commodity at that time.
No, but it's from an animal. So I thought anything from an animal.
Well, right. So if you look at it, it's really, as Presbytera says, we're fasting from any animal that has blood or any byproduct of that animal. Right. That's the fasting rule.
Right. Okay.
So we need to, get our genetics teams out there to make animals with no blood.
Animals with yes.
Then it'll be okay.
Right. I guess that's where the shellfish is okay, right? Because they gotta have something pumping through their body, or
I mean, they do, but
Yes. Here we go. I had lost my place, but now it's back. From Aaron, even though it's not obligatory, should we occasionally visit the graves of our deceased loved ones?
yes, yeah, and in fact, it's an Orthodox practice for us to visit at particular times. The 3-day, the 9-day, the 40-day, the 1 year mark, and then usually it's every 3 years after that. Now that doesn't mean that it's got to be only on 3 years, but it is our Orthodox tradition that we go and we visit the grave sites and we say the Thessalion prayer when we go. So absolutely, although it's not obligatory, yes, we absolutely should go so that we can remember those names and God can hear us pray for those names.
And you go to the cemetery on the Saturday of Souls before Pentecost.
Before Pentecost, correct.
You always go to the cemetery, and everybody comes out, and and you do the Tricyon there.
Right.
Yes.
And Patty Peterson points out anything with lifeblood.
Anything with okay. Anything with lifeblood. All right.
All right. Constantine Hunches. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. I've heard that the priest must wear the epitrachelion during sacraments. But what if he doesn't? Is the sacrament then invalid if he doesn't wear it? Thank you.
So technically, yes, that is the sign of his priesthood, is the epitracheli or the stole. Okay, so the answer to that question is yes. That technically would not be a valid sacrament. I have never performed one of the sacraments, baptism, unction, weddings without the epitracheli. I've never done that, but I do have to be honest. Somebody has called me out to the hospital, and I didn't have it in the car. Okay, and they wanted to receive communion, so and I wasn't it wasn't a situation where I could go back. So I did commune them without the epitracheli. I should not have done that, but I had to make a decision. And it was more important that they receive the sacrament of communion than for me to take a chance and delay, and then something happens. So, technically, that shouldn't be. So that's why now I carry a epitracheli in my car at all times.
We have a super chat from Diane with a question from Ted.
Okay, Ted.
Not a question, actually a statement. The young animals need the nutrients to grow. We fast from dairy so that the animals can eat. We sacrifice for the animals so they can grow.
I have never heard that before. All right. Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
Okay.
Thank you, Ted. I appreciate that.
All right.
By the way, I do appreciate Ted's humor too, because he'll send me different Christian humor things, which always kind of brighten my day there. So thank you, Ted, for those.
Oh, and I do appreciate the emails from Diane. I don't always get back to her. I think while I was in Florida, I got them late, but I always do appreciate your emails, Diane. She'll send interesting articles.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes. All right. From Jackhammer, what is the soul, or what is soul, and what happens to soul after death?
Well, it is a Pixar movie.
What? So,
Is it?
so what happens to the soul after we die, I'm going backwards here, is that it is forcibly separated from the body at the time of death, and that it awaits the resurrection. It awaits the general resurrection, and I'm just quoting from the prayer now. It awaits the general resurrection so that it can be reunited with the body. Okay, so the prayer states that God has himself caused the intermingling of both the soul and the body, and that this forcible separation occurs at death, where the soul now waits for that reunification that happens at the general resurrection. Okay, so that's what happens to the soul after death. Okay, so what is the soul? Okay. Oh, that's a good, what is the, I mean.
Is it the breath of life that God breathed into?
It's the ruach. I think we can definitely use that as a starting point. That is the breath that God breathed into man to animate him, to quicken him, right? But it is inseparable from, it is made to be inseparable from the body.
Right.
Would you say
Yeah.
that in Orthodoxy there's a connection with soul and consciousness, and also the nous?
I don't know if I'd go so far as to say that, that the body is the flesh robot that is controlled by the nous. So I don't know if Orthodoxy wouldn't say that the nous is still that intelligence is still present in both the body and the soul, because we need the physical brain to have our consciousness, but it's consciousness not something that you can kind of pull out of the brain. So the two are necessary. It's not like one resides. It's not like the episode of Star Trek, right, where they take Spock's brain and then he just becomes this robot.
Yeah, like the worst episode.
Oh yeah, you don't like that?
Spock's brain.
Spock's brain.
Well, I read an article one time many years ago. Can't remember where it was, but they said that and I don't know how they happened to do this, but they saw that when a person died at the moment of death, their weight went down
Yeah, there has been
a little bit, and so they were saying, is that the soul leaving the body, the weight of the soul? I don't know, but I thought it was interesting.
That is an interesting point. Absolutely, yeah.
All right. From Ayaz Maki to you, what is your advice for someone trying to figure out their path? I've recently been looking into the priesthood, but for years I've been taking steps towards a different career path. It may be a stupid question, but how do I figure out the difference between a fleeting interest and what I'm being called to by God?
Well, I'm gonna have to use myself as the example. The one way that from personal experience is that God is persistent. So although I never had, in the sense that I know, I never had a calling for the priesthood. It's not something I grew up with. It's not something I thought about in my careers. But God was persistent and put people in my path that reminded me of that. And I chose to ignore those until I met Father Nick. And then Father Nick just happened to be more persistent than everybody else. And he employed a particularly effective tactic, which was to be subtle. You know what? Why don't you come and help me chant? Hey, you know what? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? So rather than say, I see something in you, that I think you could become a priest, he never did any of that. So he just kind of walked me to where I was eventually supposed to go. So the first thing I would say is that I wouldn't necessarily worry about it, because God is persistent. God will call you and he will bring you to that path. The problem is, which was the problem with me, is that you have to be open to that voice. And for many, many years, I was closed to that voice. But God did put somebody in my path who was able to speak to that calling, and that brought me there. So, like I said, I wouldn't really put, I don't want to say I don't put a lot of thought into it, but God, if this is what God wants for your life, then it will happen. Not everybody needs to be a priest to do God's work, all right? But some are called to that. Some, like me, are called later, and then some are called earlier. But God will call.
We have a $10 super chat from Joe Jones, and he asks, Father, I was baptized in the Moravian Church, a Protestant church that predates Luther. The Roman Catholic Church considers my baptism doubtful. Would the Orthodox Church do a conditional baptism? And he goes on, the Catholic Church considers my baptism questionable because they say the Moravians sometimes in the past didn't use water.
Well, okay, so if that is true, because again, I'm not familiar with the Moravian.
I've heard of it, but I don't.
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know the actual rite, the baptismal rite. But if that is true, that they do not use water, then that would invalidate the baptism, because even from the earliest records that we have, which is the dietary, and even the gospel itself, Christ's words are very clear: those who are baptized in water and spirit.
But to be specific, he didn't say that he wasn't baptized in water. He says that the Catholic Church considers it doubtful because sometimes in the past they didn't use water. So in this particular case, let's say, I'm sure he'll clarify, if he was baptized with water, what would the Orthodox Church consideration on that be?
Well, like I said, I'd have to know the actual Moravian rite, and I haven't read that. I'm just saying that I understand the Catholic Church's position. If it is a possible practice not to use water, and his baptismal certificate doesn't say anything about in water, then there is the possibility that that could have occurred, and that would invalidate the baptism.
Because even with the emergency air baptisms of babies, they have to then be baptized in water.
If they survive, then they must be baptized in water. The air baptism does not count.
Right. Okay. From Nisi Torvin, Father bless. Is there a church position on nuclear weapons? My husband works with missiles, and we've been getting more and more convicted every day.
Okay, just read the first sentence again.
Is there a church position on nuclear weapons?
So, not specifically on nuclear weapons, but there is one that war in the Orthodox Church is never the answer to a situation. So we do not believe in the saying of peace through superior firepower. Okay, so that is not an Orthodox credo. But I understand your situation because one of the first jobs that I had coming out of school as an engineer was working in a facility that manufactured that manufactured ammunition, okay, for different wheel vehicles. And part of our research was to determine what were the most effective methods of either killing or of instilling maximum amount of injury. All right, so those at the time, again, I was a young kid. I wasn't thinking in terms of what is Orthodox and what is not Orthodox. But even not if I was not a priest, that would be a job that I could no longer take and be true to my Orthodox faith. So the answer to your question is that that's a decision that you'll have to face in terms of, what are my responsibilities in terms of the work that I do. My work was directly involved in the research and development of weaponry that would maim or kill. Okay, so today I would have to excuse myself from that work. So those are considerations that you would have to make, and as Christians, we are called to make those very difficult decisions, which oftentimes can affect our own livelihood.
But and we have the nuclear weapons, but I think most countries are actively trying not to use them. I mean, yours was military was ammunition for tanks and things.
Right.
And so that was meant to be used. Where with the nuclear weapons, it's a little bit different because we're hoping that they will not be used.
They will hope right that they will not be used. So, like I said, you have to analyze your particular situation and what is your involvement and what are you called to do by your company, and then match that against what are our Orthodox ideals, our Christian ideals.
And from Paladin, hello, born in Rochester, living in Dallas. I am a somewhat new catechumen. Does the Orthodox Church believe that God knows everything, including our futures? If so, does it believe we have free will?
So the answer to those questions are yes. We do believe that God is omnipotent and that he knows everything, and that as the Matthew quote that I just read, Jesus tells us only the Father knows. Okay, so yes, we do believe that the Father knows, but the Father equally has given us the free will to be able to make our decisions, our own decisions. So even though God is omnipotent and he knows what the answer is, he does not allow that to affect our ability to have free will. So this is why we do not believe in predestination.
Okay. And then greetings from Santa Man 1 and Carol Weaver. And then again, Paladin, who we had just had a question from, says, thank you for all your amazing videos. They have helped me so much in entering into God's holy church.
Wow, thank you very, very much. That's Demos. You say that's kind of why we're here, right? I mean,
exactly.
to
Thank you.
in a with all humility, to say that this is we feel that this is a very appropriate use of technology.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot more to come.
Yes, more to come. Stay tuned. Cooking with V-Bugs. Dad has a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
What should we do if we know that someone has put a death curse on us? We have witnesses who know the person who cursed us, and to be able to protect our. Oh, this thing jumps when new things come in. Oh goodness. Oh, here we go. We know we have witnesses who know the person who cursed us, and to be able to protect our family. We've had a house blessing done. However, that was only back home and not in the UK. And as a diaspora, we have little to no access to priests who are able to perform house blessings in the UK.
Really? Oh, wow.
So what do you do if someone put a death curse on, and how do they protect their family from the death curse?
So, I don't know if they can all see that.
No.
No? Okay, can't see that. All right. But again, the pre-service book, and this is the prayer for deliverance from the evil eye. Okay? So again, so as you've heard me say many times, Orthodox priests, at least from what we learned in seminary, parish priests are not allowed to do exorcisms. This is something that is way out of our wheelhouse. All right? But this is one prayer that we can do, okay? And again, we don't believe that the person themselves has the power to influence us or cast evil upon us. What we do believe is that the person through demonic influence can believe that he is under that. All right. So what this prayer is for is that we recognize, number one, that we recognize that Satan has no power over us, only that which we allow him. And secondly, that it is always, this prayer is always directed at the demons. It is never directed at the person, because we don't believe the person has any power to do anything, like witchcraft.
So the person doesn't have the power, but what about they can bring, so they want to curse somebody for whatever reason, they're mad at them, and they ask the demons, can't the demons go, oh, that's a good idea? I mean, I'm kind of kidding, but I mean,
Right, yeah.
you know, bring like, say Demos, I'm mad at Demos, and
What did I do?
and you know, now he's in their radar, in their sights. Maybe is that the power for that? I mean, maybe that person can't have the power to put a curse on that family, but they might have brought the demons, kind of got them to go over to that family.
But even if they do, the demons still don't have any power over us unless we give it to them.
Okay. But they can trouble our lives.
Oh yeah, they can definitely cause trouble in our lives.
Did you just give me a death curse? I may need that prayer.
No, I wouldn't do that.
We have 2 super chats. We'll jump to real quick. Mike Ality TV is in with $5. Thank you, Mike Ality. That's interesting. Hello, Father. For those who make it to heaven, are they guaranteed that at the final judgment that they won't be sent to hell later?
It starts off interesting because it says for those who made it into heaven. Okay, so there are very few cases in which we have heard people have received crowns of glory. Okay, obviously the saints fall into that category. The Virgin Mary, the Theotokos, the thief on the cross, right? So we have those examples, but for the most part, what we are praying for is God's mercy. We don't know. All right. So so for those that we know have earned their martyrdom and their place, that cannot be taken away from them. But for the second part, for those we don't know what that situation is, so there's nothing to take away or to give because we don't know what it is.
Well, do we enter heaven before the second coming and the final judgment? I mean, how does that work? I mean, are we waiting for
Well,
the,
we get the foretaste of both. We get the foretaste of heaven, we get the foretaste of hell, and then we are in a sleep until the second coming. But again, there's that whole thing about, are we asleep? Are we awake? And then we have to remember that we're outside of time, right?
right?
And that we can be in both states at the same time.
But it would seem tough that God would say, "Come on in," and then kick you out.
No. So once you have received your crowns of glory, like in the case of the thief or of the apostles or of the Virgin Mary, Christ himself has given us that guarantee of faith. Jesus Christ has given us that guarantee of salvation.
All right, and our second super chat is from Tommy Williams for $5. Thank you very much, Tommy. Nice
All right,
to see you
Tom.
again. Roman Catholicism accepts in self-defense and just war you can take a life. Does Orthodoxy believe any situation where one can use lethal force? Like, is there any reason a person can justify lethal force in Orthodoxy?
No. So the answer to that is just an unequivocal no. However, as I've mentioned previously, and in the great book. Oh, did I not have it here? Oh, wait a minute. I'm looking. On Orthodox warfare by Father Webster, I believe. In that the Orthodox Church, in the reality of today's world, realizes that there are situations that it is necessary to go to war to combat evil. So just as the Israelites did in the Old Testament, there are situations. Now, the Orthodox Church never justifies war as a cause, but they understand that there are times that war has to happen so that evil can be dealt with. But even after that, all the soldiers are called back to repent for what they have done. Like I said, it's not a sin to go to war, but taking another person's life requires tears of repentance and requires confession to be received back into the church.
So if I'm, one last thing. So if I'm in my house and I have my baby, let's say, and someone breaks in and they are charging me and it looks like they mean me bodily harm, possibly going to kill me, if I shoot them to protect the baby and me, that wouldn't be considered just.
Well, okay, so now we have this idea of justice, okay? But in the Orthodox, there is no defense for taking someone else's life. There is an understanding of why you took that life, and the Orthodox Church needs to see that you are repentant for that action, that you have taken someone who is the image and likeness of God, regardless of what you think of that person. So that's where we have to be careful with this idea of justice. You received justice. They were going to do harm to you and your child, and you are now in response have meted out what you feel is justice.
Well, it's not so much justice. It's just at the moment, it's like, if I don't kill them, they're going to kill me.
Right. But what you feel is the proper thing to do is that at that moment you have made a decision that that person's life is your child's life is more important than their life. You've made that decision.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what
right. You've made that decision. So the Orthodox Church can't say that, okay, because everyone is the image and likeness of God. But that doesn't mean that the church doesn't understand what happened. but they can't see it as they can't weigh it as a scale would weigh it.
Okay. All right. From Carol Weaver, if a person has been or is baptized in the Rokor, would you be accepted if you wanted to become Greek Orthodox? My husband is just not comfortable with Rokor. We are at a monetary seminary. Monetary/seminary.
Monastery.
Monastery.
Oh, what did I say? Monetary?
Monetary. Okay.
It's a seminary that makes a lot of money.
Right, that's right. It's a monetary.
Monastery. Wow, that S, I didn't see it.
So,
Monastery.
So was the question, can they be received into the Orthodox Church? Yes, because if they are Orthodox, they're Orthodox. They don't need to be chrismated or baptized. They are Orthodox already.
All right. And then Aaron says, I noticed a lot of churches on Sunday of Orthodoxy no longer read the anathemas. Why is this?
That's a good question. I mean, it's right there in the priest service handbook. It says service for Sunday of Orthodoxy, and that's there at the end. So I don't know why they wouldn't read them. Supposed to.
And then from WS, what are your thoughts that some Orthodox theologians, priests, and historians say, based on solid evidence, that all the books of the Old Testament is not as old to plagiarize ancient Greek books?
Okay. Can you give me some help with that?
I think they're saying that they're not as old as we may think, that that they have plagiarized ancient Greek books.
I mean, I've heard the arguments that Christianity has stolen ideas and rituals from paganism. I've heard that story, but I have not heard that the Old Testament has taken from other stories. Now, for example, and Demos, I'm sure, and that you've heard of this, that they will say that every religion has a flood account and has a creation account, right? Okay, so there is the idea that what this is a Hebrew retelling of some type of other of other account from another religion. But I mean, we don't really have any proof of that, and many of the things that are central to the Hebrew Bible are not present in pagan rites. And for sure, the number one thing is the idea of one God who has a nation that he has blessed, and that he has that have followed him, and that he has protected. And we also don't have the idea of the dualist idea of good versus evil, that there are evil demagogues and good demagogues, and that there's this constant battle. So we don't see that present in Hebrew scripture either.
Isn't there this belief out there that I'd like to look more into this myself, that there is a Hellenic-centric path that Christianity has been born out of? We have seen this before, this argument that Christianity is ancient Greek.
Yes, and in fact, now to be truthful, so this is why some of the books that are in the Orthodox Bible are not, the Old Testament books are not in Hebrew scripture, because the rabbis of the time felt that they were corrupted by Greek Hellenism. So that was a recognition that Greek Hellenism had seeped into Judaism, And the rabbis wanted to cleanse that, and that's why a lot of those books are not recognized as Hebrew scripture. Yeah, absolutely. So they didn't just necessarily, and I would use the word corrupt, but
Infiltrate.
infiltrate the New Testament, but also that it's present also in the Old Testament. So in fact, and the startling example of that, or the primary example of that, is that the Gospel of John was taken to be Gnostic, meaning that what John was talking about was this secret knowledge that you had to have, and they used many of his verses to support this very Hellenistic idea of secret knowledge, the importance of wisdom and illumination and those types of things.
All right. Shelley would like to know, how do I view icons, and how do I use it to help me with my journey?
Ooh, icons. Okay. Look, sis.
Oh yes, your book with a
I'm gonna
very
take-
beautiful cover picture.
With a very beautiful cover picture.
Oh.
So how should I take that? So I'm just going to read from the book. Wisdom, let us be attentive. No, I shouldn't. Number one, in addition to enhancing the beauty of a church, icons serve several purposes. Number one, they instruct the laity in manners pertaining to the Christian faith. They're teaching us things about, because they depict a saint or they depict an event. It's a means of veneration, not worship, that lifts our minds up to that which is presented. So when we see the Theotokos, we think of her humility, we think of her discernment, we think of her patience and her love. When we see St. George, we think of courage, and we think about the ability to demonstrate our Christian faith and not to hide it, all right? And then number three, it arouses in us to imitate the virtues of the personages being depicted in the icons, so that they may transform and sanctify us. So when we're talking about how do we properly use the icons, those would be the three things.
All right. And then I mistakenly skipped a few questions. I was up really early today, like before 3. So I'm trying to make it through with coffee. So I apologize.
I don't think you mean 3 p.m. either.
No, 3 a.m. I've been up since. So sorry about skipping the questions. So Shelley, I asked, what does it take to be a catechumen?
Say, I want to be a catechumen. I mean, we can't really overcomplicate this. If you desire to learn about the Orthodox faith, remember, just because you're a catechumen does not mean that you have to convert to the faith. You know, when people come to me and they say, Father, what is the process for becoming Orthodox? I slow them down and I say, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go through a catechism, okay? And you're going to go on this journey. And at the end of that journey, 6 months, a year, whatever that is, I'm going to ask you a question. What do you want to do at this point? Sometimes people say, thank you very much for the journey. I've learned quite a bit, but Orthodoxy is not for me. Or they say, Father, I'm ready to become Orthodox. So just because you're a catechumen, don't think that it automatically means that you must become Orthodox. You are on a journey and you're learning about Orthodoxy, but at the end, you have to make a decision, yes or no.
All right. Patty Peterson, isn't there some talk about reinstating the deaconess?
And then handmaid Leia comes in and says, just say no to deaconesses.
Just say no. All right.
So there's always been a controversy about that one.
So at our clergy retreat that happened just I don't know.
Just the clergy? That was last
that was
October.
it was
Right
February.
around
February.
Just the clergy?
Yeah, where I went to Ohio.
Isn't that just the clergy?
Yeah, that was that.
Oh, for Detroit diocese.
Yeah.
You're mixing me up with your
clergy
national clergy.
Yeah. No. So we had the diocese clergy pre-Lenten retreat. Okay, and this topic came up, and we had a great discussion. And I've got to say that I got to say, my mind's been changed on this. I was a huge proponent for women deaconesses, and after these discussions, I'm now much more hesitant. I'll tell you why. Do you want to know why?
No.
Oh,
No,
okay. All right.
kidding. Yes.
Okay, fine.
No, we all want to know.
We all want to know why. Okay, all right.
Orthodoxy questions never answered.
Never answered, right. So I brought up the point that the reason for bringing it back was that there are some situations like like baptizing adult women, possibly the idea of maybe a woman confessing to another woman, and then the priest does the absolution. So there are certain things that would be helpful. And in the discussion, what came out was that although we did have women deacons, there is not evidence to show that they acted outside of an administrative capacity. Now, that is not a good enough reason to not have women deacons. But the better reason for me was that with the recent what Pope Francis did, with the recent encyclic where he allowed priests to bless
Gay marriage?
bless gay unions or marriage. Okay, the Orthodox Church saw in that a very real difficulty. If you read the Pope's encyclic, it says that the prayer is directed that the couple may find their way back from their error and that they will return to the church. That's the point of the prayer. The prayer is not to bless the same-sex union, all right? But the reality of the situation is that the people are going to see that as a blessing of the union. So there's going to be a divide between what the prayer actually is for and what people see it as. If we now take that and we apply it to the deaconess, if the Orthodox Church says, yes, let us return to the position of women deacons, we will say in administrative capacity only. But what the public will hear is this is the door to women's priesthood, right? And the argument is going to be, if I can be a woman and a deacon, then why can't I be a priest? And that's going to be a very dangerous door, a very difficult door for the Orthodox to go through. So in that sense, I would have to say that for that reason, I think the Orthodox Church rightfully has to be very, very cautious in light of what's happening in the Catholic Church to make sure that whatever decisions we make are properly analyzed so that we don't put ourselves in a position that we can't get ourselves out.
And haven't you said that in your different parishes that the loudest voices against the idea of a woman priesthood have come from women?
The loudest voices
Against women priests.
older women.
Older women.
Oh yeah, this. But from the modern woman, if she sees a woman deacon, then because then what they're going to say is, so are you playing with ordination now? Ordination is ordination. You can't say, well, a deacon's ordination is not the same as a priest. Laying on of hands is laying on of hands, right? So you can get yourself into trouble because once they're ordained, then they have received that sacrament, right?
All right. From Santa Man 1, why is honey allowed, but milk is not? I'm assuming during Lent.
And Patty Peterson kind of answers that for us. She says, mostly because insects don't have blood.
I mean, sounds like a good answer, but I don't really know what the answer to that is, you know? I mean,
Well,
I guess, I see what Patty is saying. I just don't have any information to back that up.
I don't. How is honey made? I mean, how is honey made from? I know they collect pollen, but is it something from the bee that
Is it-
turns it into? I have no idea how honey is made.
Isn't there saliva?
I'm not a scientist, but it's kind of they collect the pollen, etc. It's
Regurgitated?
that's the word I
Oh,
was looking
okay.
for, regurgitated,
Okay.
etc. And you would hope they don't get stung when collecting it. But
I used to like
hon-
honey. No.
but honey has a lot of biblical references too. The land of milk and honey,
Honey,
and so
right.
forth and so on. I wonder if that there's economia in that as well.
Well, it's the land of milk and honey.
Oh, well, you can't get rid of both.
So,
Then it's
all right.
a land of denied milk and honey.
No, but I see what Patty's saying. I just want to go back and see if I can actually get a reference to back that up.
So we'll look that up for next week. Santa Man 1 does have an interesting comment that usually on dairy farms, the calves are slaughtered, so the cows have to keep lactating.
Aw.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Mm.
So maybe that's why we we deny ourselves some milk.
Mm.
All right. I think hopefully I didn't skip over any more. I believe the next one is from John Barone. You guys need a patron saint for Orthodoxy Q&A. An icon.
Mm.
Who would that be?
Well, it would be is there a saint for technology, or is there a saint for evangelism?
Technology of like writing on papyrus.
Well, yeah, right?
I was thinking more of education.
A patron saint of the
The
internet.
patron saint of education.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, there definitely must be. So who is the patron saint?
Who
of
is
it?
the patrons? Well, I can think of every time I think of education. Well, I think of who was it? Philip, that was teaching the Ethiopian.
Oh, right.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
But can one declare a saint to be a patron of whatever? How is that process? Who decides what saint is the patron of what?
Yeah, and again, I think that is more of a grassroots effort. There have been miracles that have been attributed to the saint, and if those focus in one particular area, then the calling will be that saint has cured has cured cancer, let's say, or that particular saint because of something with their eye, that they're the healing of the eye. So it's usually grassroots that it comes through.
So we're gonna have to debate this and get back with a proper answer. That's curious. A patron saint of Orthodoxy questions answered. I'm not gonna be egotistic enough to say Saint Demosthenes.
Saint Demosthenes.
We'll have to move on.
And then we just have a little comment from Ted, who says, that's a nice mug, Father A. Maybe sell a little merch and the funds can be donated.
We're working.
Oh,
on
you saw
that.
this?
Yeah, it's
Oh.
on the
It
camera.
is a beautiful mug. We're working on that, and one of the ideas for a mug is using the Tartan Priest logo with Father and the James Bond kind of get up holding the cross. We've talked about t-shirts. We've been talking about this for a while, but it's like many things around here. We'll get to it eventually. But thank you very, very much for the interest, and keep an eye out.
Yes. All right. From Alexander Bielski. Which Bible is best for a new convert? I was looking at the Classic Orthodox Bible on Amazon, and there seem to be some others. I hope to get the most accurate one.
Okay, so
So what Bible is best for a new convert?
well, again,
They saw that one on Amazon,
right.
but there's some others out there. They just don't want to know which would be the best. So you like that one over?
I like this one, and I like New Jerusalem. I think those two are NIV. NIV is good also. The Orthodox Study Bible I like just because of the notes at the bottom. So the notes that are at the bottom are strictly Orthodox notes, But if we're just looking for a Bible that is translated very close to the original Greek or the Hebrew, the NIV or the New Jerusalem Bible, I think, are really good choices.
I like the icons in there.
Oh yeah, right. I mean, yep. I mean, those are right. Beautiful, beautiful icons. Right?
Yes. All right. And then Patty said, I'd buy a couple of those mugs.
All right.
All right, so,
We're gonna get one with a tartan priest,
yes,
right?
one with the
Okay.
tartan priest. I will start. I think we're gonna start with mugs and T-shirts. Definitely a project for after Holy Week. I would say you and I should get together and brainstorm and actually make this happen.
Yeah. So these were, I think these were mugs that we had in Flint, right? These
Well,
did we make
uh,
these in Flint?
Well, the name on the mug kind of gives away.
Oh, Assumption. Yes. Oh, that's true. Yes, it's Assumption.
Was somebody assuming?
Mhm.
That's right.
Assumption.
All right. Is this? I'm trying to see the PF stats. It says Mark 15:2. You have said so, and not it is as you say, which the error is not addressed, is to not admit he is king of the Jews. I think that's just a comment, maybe.
You said Mark 16:2.
15.
Mark 15:2.
I think this is the first time I haven't seen Father stand up
I know.
to get a book.
Yep.
Somebody's definitely losing bingo tonight.
Well, all the nobody's called me out on a book I got to get up and get. I did turn around for the Orthodox on Warfare, right? I did turn around, but I knew that I had that one at home.
So why are
So-
you looking at that?
I'm just looking. So what is he's saying?
It says it's you have said so, and not it is as you say.
Oh yeah, because it's si legis. You say it, right? It's not. So it's not as it is as you said. That is correct.
Oh, did you say that somewhere? I'm trying to think if that's a comment. Did you?
Oh, is that like a no? I don't remember saying that, but
Okay.
but
All right.
but he is correct. Yeah, because the Greek is si leis. You are saying that.
All right. I'm trying to see if there's anybody down there that has not had a.
Yes. I'll while you're looking for more, I'll jump ahead. The Retri report is suggesting that Saint Catherine the Great Martyr is a common patron for educational organizations in the Orthodox Church. So there's a contender. And Aaron F says, well, the three holy hierarchs, Saint John Chrysostom, Basil, and Gregory, are also considered patron saints of students, I believe, studies in general. So we have three more contenders. There's some suggestions to make car stickers as well for merchandise. And Grease Bowl has a question. How does one go about becoming an Orthodox Christian? What's the process of doing that?
So, and I'm going to answer that the same way that I answered, how do you become a catechumen? And the answer is A, find a priest and find an Orthodox church, not necessarily in that order, okay? And go to that priest and say exactly what my catechumens have done with me. They said, Father, I've become interested in the Orthodox Church and I want to learn more. Sometimes they say, I want to become a catechumen. So when they do say, I want to become Orthodox, that's when I slow them down and I say, before you say you want to become Orthodox, let's make sure that you find out what Orthodoxy is and decide if that is what is appropriate for you. So the process is very simple. Find a church, find a priest, not necessarily in that order, and then say, rather than I want to become Orthodox, say, I am interested in learning about whether Orthodoxy is right for me. Okay? Because again, that I don't want to say that, that you cannot find Christ in Protestantism. And I certainly don't want to say you can't find Christ in Catholicism. But if you want to find the fullness of the Christian faith. You find that in the Orthodox Church.
And we do have another follow-up to honey. Sentiman 1 points out that honey is bee vomit, and it is by far the tastiest insect vomit
gee.
that we've tried. I don't have an argument for that. And WS points out that it is more like an antibacterial. So that is true.
Yeah,
There are
Yeah.
antibacterial
I did hear
properties.
that.
No,
it
we
did
just
have-
saw that. Or was I watching it by myself when I was in Florida, where they cut themselves and they said, "Don't put honey on it. It's an ancient
And aseptic, right? Yeah, that it does have
Yes.
medicinal properties.
So I have a bag of bee pollen. Does that mean I have a bag of like bee vomit pebbles? Is that
But
what
it
that
is the tastiest insect vomit that we have, you know.
Wow, something I
So
maybe shouldn't have known.
So I found this. As the internet was gaining sway, Pope John Paul named Saint Isidore of Seville for the internet. And then another contender for patron of the internet is Saint Maximilian Kolbe, who built a large media service to bring news, information, and religious education to the rural areas of Poland in the 1920s. So there might be a saint of the internet.
Saint Maximilian does have a nice ring to it.
Yeah, it does, right?
For a million subscribers, hopefully.
Yeah.
Shelley says, I am born Catholic and going to a Greek Orthodox church. My father is Catholic. He thinks the Greek Orthodox religion is false. He's never been religious nor acted religious, but once I change, he starts to be defensive about the church. How should I deal or talk to him?
You know, and this is not uncommon. I see it more. Well, actually, you know, you saw it in me, right? Because there was that point where we were kind of not going to church, you know, and then I got really lazy, and then you said, "Hey, it's time that we start going back to church." And I said, "Yeah, okay." And then you said, "Well, you know, I'm either going to go back to the Baptist church or I'm going to go to a non-denominational church." And I said, "Oh, no, we're not doing that. We're going to an Orthodox church." Now, again, I wasn't that well educated in Orthodoxy, right? But I wasn't about to go to another church, even though I wasn't. So I understand that 100%, okay, having kind of lived through that. So I get it. I understand that. So where that conversation needs to begin is from the points of similarity. What are those points of contact between the two churches? Start there, okay? Because you don't want to be that person that comes across and makes it look like, you know, hey, I found something better than the church that you have been devoted to your whole life. So we want to be careful with that kind of perception. So start from points of contact, okay? The two churches have a similar origin. I mean, they have the same origin, not similar. They have the same origin. They came from the same Christ. It's just that one grew up in the East and one grew up in the West. Second, we both believe in all of the major dogmatic statements of faith. God is one in three persons, that Christ is the Son of God who was sent by the Father for the salvation of mankind, that he was born of a Virgin Mary. These are points of contact. Okay, and now when he says, okay, that sounds good, well, why aren't you just Catholic? Now you can start to talk about some of those differences in the faith, okay, in terms of an unchanging nature of the Orthodox Church, of the fact that not everything needs to be explained, so that the Orthodox Church still retains that idea of mysticism as opposed to scholasticism that needs to explain everything, okay? And so that's what I'm saying is start from points of contact and then move to what are those differences that you see as closer to the original church.
All right, so we'll wrap up with a few more questions, but I think we skipped this. Correct me if I'm wrong. From WS, kind of a follow-up to his earlier question. If we have free will and God does not get involved due to that, then why do some priests say, just pray, and that is enough? The Bible clearly states faith alone is useless, and by their fruits you know them.
Wait a minute. Say that works are
Faith alone is useless, and by their fruits you know them. The fruits of their actions.
right. Right. Okay.
So if we have free will and God does not get involved due to that, which is not what I believe that we say, that free will but no God involvement, then why do some priests say just pray and that's enough? So let's break it down. So we have free will.
Correct.
That does not mean God does not get involved, correct?
That is right. So that is correct. Is that God is an active that God is an active part of our lives, but he also he as Christ he becomes an active part of our life when we allow ourselves to submit to his will. When we openly oppose him, okay? So he gives us the free will that we can choose an alternate path. But that doesn't mean that he says, well, I'm done with you. He is consistently there waiting for us to turn ourselves around. Okay. So this idea of, well, just pray. Okay. But it's more than just prayer because in the epistle of James, we have faith without works is dead. So it's not just about prayer, but it's about acting. It's about moving towards Jesus Christ. If that prayer can help us or does help us, then that's fine. But we still have to make the movement to go to Christ. We have to come up to the cup of communion. We have to go to church and attend services. We have to reach out to our brothers and sisters in need and help them. And just prayer doesn't do that.
Trying to see.
There's a PF Stats, who apparently their question was removed. It was about the Orthodox churches. Let me see if I can word this. The Orthodox churches push the Orthodox study Bible when the Orthodox study Bible is evangelical propaganda, as other elders say, uses NKJV than standard and does interpretations wrong. I might be messing this up due to context.
It seems.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're saying that they're interpreting things wrong, I really need examples. It does say right here in the Orthodox Study Bible, the text of the New King James Version may be quoted or reprinted. Okay, so they are saying now, okay, so, but it also says the text of the St. Athanasius Academy Septuagint may be quoted, all right? So it's not just for the New Testament, it is the New King James Version, all right?
And that was the example, actually. That was the second part. Remember when PF Sat said an example being Mark 15:2, and you're wondering if you had said that? That was the example that he provided.
Okay.
So
wait a minute.
So I'll repeat that. So Mark 15:2, it's quote, you have said so, end quote, and not quote, it is as you say, end quote, which the error is not addressed, is to not admit he is the king of the Jews. So he's claiming that there is a translation error right there as an example.
It is
Is that the case in your version as well?
No, it clearly does say it is as you say.
But according to PF Sats, it's supposed to be you have said so.
All right. So here's what I don't understand. See that cross there? See the little crosses right there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all these crosses. Is that supposed to refer us to a note somewhere? Because it's not in the notes. So that's what I've got to look up. But I can't deny that he's correct, right?
Let's see. All right. Okay.
So then, would
I'll
you
look that up
say,
later.
in retrospect, kind of like what this is alluding, would the NIV be more accurate as a translation?
Well, okay, I don't want to condemn an entire text off of a couple of, what we would say mistranslations. Okay. So, one fault does not make a person evil, right? Okay. So in that sense, okay, yes, there is an issue here, and that issue certainly can be brought up. But I have used the Orthodox Study Bible extensively in my Bible studies, and I found it to be a very accurate representation, and the notes have been very helpful in providing an Orthodox perspective. So, are there issues with this particular translation? Well, you've just pointed out one, but that doesn't negate the entire essence of the Orthodox Study Bible.
If you study the Orthodox Study Bible enough, you will find errors.
You'll find
that's,
errors.
That's part of the appeal, right?
And that's not to say that I haven't had difficulty with the NIV version. So I've seen some difficulties there too. So, again, it's God's word. It's, it's difficult and, excuse me, and it's being translated from another language. Okay. And so
From not just one language, several languages and ancient languages to top it all off.
Aramaic, Hebrew, Greek. Yes, absolutely. Right.
But it is, in some ways, you can say it's a miracle that through thousands of years that we still have the key to be able to decipher these languages, and even to the point of specific distinctions in certain words, the way that
Yes.
certain words are used. One of the things I've always enjoyed about your sermons, and you've done this many times, is by breaking down the ancient Greek word and saying, okay, this is what people commonly think, but when you actually break down the Greek Orthodox word, it actually is either more forceful, it means something radically different,
Right.
et cetera. So, it is what it is.
So,
Oh, we almost made a whole show.
but you gave me
Thank you, PF Stats.
you gave me a reason here. Hold up. I just want to see.
The New Jerome Biblical Commentary.
All right. It's kind of it was at the seminary, so it was my it's an authorized version.
And while you're looking that up, people have suggested Saint Luke as a physician for our patron, and I think Diane had.
Oh, Yeronda Amelianos.
I'm very, very happy you pronounced that.
Oh, Emilianos. Okay.
Would life be better, like in the movies, whenever they look something up, they just open the book and there it is?
Yeah.
That always bothered me in Indiana Jones. He picks up this huge book and just immediately opens up to the picture of the Ark. It just on one swipe.
Could be because they turned to that page so much that it was worn enough that when you open it, it automatically went to that.
Or was it divine intervention? Yeah.
So this is interesting because St. Jerome's commentary of, so St. Jerome, now in his commentary, has it as, you have said so, right? Which was what he said was the original translation, right? Jesus' answer to Pilate is non-committal, not denying as applied to him, but not accepting the political framework implied in Pilate's use of it. All right? So the Orthodox Study Bible is acknowledging the first part of Jerome's commentary. Is he saying Jesus does not deny the ultimate truth, right? It is what you said. But the second translation, which is you have said so, right, does not accept the political framework that was implied in Pilate's use of it, of, King of the Jews. I am not the King of the Jews that they were expecting, that Messiah. So it's kind of interesting that he brings it in both ways.
That's a critical mistranslation, I would say.
No, because the first part of it is the first part of Jerome's commentary on that is that Jesus does not deny it. Excuse me. So the Orthodox Study Bible, I'm not the professor there, okay? But I can see where the Orthodox Study Bible is saying, to bring out the point that Jesus does not deny, it says, it is as you say. But there is a political framework that Jesus is denying through his non-committal answer. In Greek, that is a non-committal answer. You have said this. So we are inferring Jesus's meaning, right?
So thank you very much, PF Stats. I'd like to take a look at some other examples. Especially, I mean, since you mentioned that that some people claim that there's a propaganda element to it. I'd like to see some other examples and see what led to that more of an extreme conclusion.
Extreme conclusion of
being that some people claim that it's propaganda, and obviously so we have one example here, but I would assume that there should be many more examples that would lead to that extreme conclusion of propaganda.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
I'd like to look more into it.
All right. Have we had enough fun?
I think so. This was a very interesting episode, and I'm writing down all the suggestions people are making.
Oh, okay.
And
all right.
We'll make a vote, and by Holy Week we should have an Orthodoxy Questions Answered official patron.
Oh, wow. Yes, that's right. We've been getting some. That's what you're saying.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
there have been many suggestions, and
there's another mug of our patron saint for the show,
Oh.
right? We'll have a mug of our patron saint.
there we go. In the meantime, there's been a fascinating discussion about honey and how it doesn't have an expiration date and so forth. So
It never
that-
goes bad.
Yeah, that's what. Didn't they find like ancient honey from like
Thousands of years.
thousands of years old, and it was still I don't know who tasted it, but
Well, James May in Top Gear tasted 20 or 30-year-old spam, and it was still okay. So
I love
those are
spam. Spam is good, man.
the holiest of foods: honey and spam. There we go.
All right.
honey baked spam.
Now that would be a terrible mistranslation. The land of spam and honey. That would be problematic. And on that note,
So again, thanks everybody. We've got a lot of great video. In fact, we were filming some videos today. Interestingly enough, location not to be disclosed.
yeah, Area 51. Well, what would be
Yeah.
area not to be disclosed?
No, because it's a surprise when you actually show the video, right?
Oh,
Okay.
that's true. That's
So
true.
again, Presbytera, thank you very much for another exciting show. All right. And we will see you all Friday. We've got
We don't have a live stream Friday.
no, we don't have a live
No,
stream
no.
Friday.
We'll be back on Sunday for the live stream, but you do have another salutation service for locals on Friday. That is true. 5
That is
p.m.
tomorrow. Right. Okay. It's all set.
All right. Hey, have a great night, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.